There it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're up for officer reports. Jan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We are no longer posting the minutes themselves up on our website because we are recording our Zoom meetings. And so I have just updated the website with a handy icon. So if you are looking for past minutes, since May, so May, we didn't have a meeting in June, and then July, August, September, and now this meeting, the Zoom meetings are available for you to view. Now, I realize that's watching a whole meeting for an hour and 15 minutes, as opposed to quickly looking to see if there's a motion. So what I'm going to do as soon as the election is over is go in and put just kind of a one pager with the agenda, and then below it, any motions and the attendance. In case anyone's not sure if, you know, do I have enough meetings this year or whatever, they will be able to quickly see a little snapshot from the meeting, even though it won't have a written out, you know, itemized dialogue of the meeting. It will be just an encapsulation of the key points plus a link to the video. So our YouTube channel is Oak Grove Community Council, of course. You can just search for it on YouTube. We have, I think, 4 meetings up there. Or you can go onto the website and look under the minutes/Zoom tab, and then it will take you to the YouTube channel on a page there.
Awesome, thank you. We also wanted to make sure everybody knew about the Community Council Board elections that are coming up. And so we'd asked that any voting eligible members who are interested in making themselves available to be nominated for board of directors positions to please let us know by January 27th meeting. And then we'll actually hold the election at our February 24th, 2021 regular meeting. So that's coming right up. Jane, could you give us a treasurer's report, please?
Yes. We have had no expenditures since our last meeting, and the last contribution was on the date of the last meeting. That was $30. And our current balance is $2,212.38.
Awesome, thank you. So the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the, we're going to do kind of LUART first. The long range planning work program that the county does now every other year is coming up. And so we recently received our email to the CPO requesting ideas for projects to put into the planning work program for the next biennium, which is 2021 to 23. And so we are at this point going to solicit ideas, but I'll talk about really what this is first, just really briefly. And so this every 2 years, the county has to put together a work program so that they budget ahead for what planning work needs to be done. And these are both state mandated and local priorities. However, in our experience, there's generally been very little budget for community requests, sometimes less than one full-time employee. And these are planning projects. These are not construction projects or economic development or code enforcement. These are strictly planning projects. And so examples of those that we've requested in recent history have been bakeries and brew pubs, which turned out well. The Park Avenue Community Project, the county took on, and that's coming up towards its conclusion. The Oak Grove Lake Oswego pedestrian bike bridge is another one that was requested by the Community Council on our last biennium request, and also issues related to residential zoning planning, which has been folded into the county's housing strategies project that's underway right now. And so this biennium that is coming up already includes some priorities defined, including housing strategies phases 2 and 3, the bike pedestrian master plan and the transit development plan. Both of those last two are grant funded, but nonetheless are already in the budget for coming up. So other requests that we've submitted that have not been accepted yet are, you may recognize some of these, developing a community design plan for McLaughlin Boulevard, acquiring property and or developing new parks and open spaces, although that sounds like capital investment because there's a planning component that we've been requesting for some years. Identify strategies to protect and enhance natural habitat, allowing CPOs more opportunities to comment, and then some standards and a 1% tax on land or an excise tax on construction for public art. As we know that the mural process was less than perfect, and so on the storage building, and so we had requested the opportunity, last time to actually have a formal set of standards around that. So typically what we do is we look at the McLaughlin area plan projects and programs, and there's a lot here. We're not going to talk about all of this, but just to let you know that there's a lot of effort that's already gone into coming up with priorities for the community. And so as we start to look at those, we really, again, need to focus on, what types of things should be prioritized, over the next 2 years. And also we're looking for planning projects. And so, again, you'll recognize the develop a community design plan from McLaughlin Boulevard was one that we've been asking for and not getting yet. But, there's also like construct improved pedestrian crossings, construct streetscape improvements. These are construction projects. So the kinds of things that we're looking for are, community design plan or, planning to create gateways to the area. Those are definitely planning type projects. Constructing of things is not. So as we look at the McLaughlin area plan projects, here's several that, we've already requested, and actually these have already been funded in the past. And so, we don't really need to, focus our effort on these right now. But there's others that haven't been funded yet, and that includes things like the sign code, things like identifying and designating wildlife and recreation corridors, again, strategies to protect and enhance natural habitat, improving access to the Willamette River and streams, and developing, recreation facilities. And so there's different things that could actually be, tied in with long-range planning that, have not actually been budgeted for yet. And so those are definitely the kinds of things that we could put into a formal request. Here's, a few more, and these are, these are little, the faded color means that they're long-range priorities for the McLaughlin area plan. Developing a grid of neighborhoods with distinct names, green infrastructure best practices for new public improvement projects, creating an inventory of historic buildings and sites and resources, public plazas as part of development or redevelopment, or creating job incubator areas. These are all things that we could definitely ask the county to look into. And so we've been putting out the word recently for to the community to, for the last couple of months actually, to start emailing in your ideas around this. The things that we've heard from the community, over that time, and also reaching, back a little bit longer for some of these, but, planning a MAX on McLaughlin or a streetcar to Oregon City. That's an email that we received recently. Improved tree protections. Again, looking at historic resource protections. Addressing some of the incompatibility issues with home businesses and what are called home occupations in the county that we, get some of those applications quite a bit. Legalizing maker spaces with retail, that's, wasn't included in breakthroughs and group hubs, but almost, that kind of came up in the discussion towards the very end as something that we were looking for, and it's included in Park Avenue too. And then also, again, requesting more opportunities for CPOs to provide comments for development, especially earlier in the process. So, speaking of processes, the process for this is that we're requesting through December 1st, submit your ideas to contact@oakgrovecpo.org. December 2nd will be our next meeting, and it'll be our combined November-December meeting. And what we'll do is we'll look over the ideas and suggestions that we've received at that point, and have an opportunity to advance those onto the county in a formal request. That formal request is due on December 18th. And then in addition, on January 19th, if we want to kick some of these over to MAPIT will be meeting again on January 19th to consider what our priorities are in case we want any of those looked at and worked on from the MAP implementation team. So that's the update for long range planning. I can take a couple questions, but really I need to get ready to hand this over to Valerie so we can keep moving tonight. But are there any questions from the floor? Feel free to use the raise your hand feature in Zoom or wave at your camera if you're not familiar with where that is. Okay, well, it looks like we are good for now.
Can I get some Zoom help?
Sure.
This thing stuck in the middle and I wanted to rather pull people over.
Stuck in the middle.
Oh, sounds like chips.
Is this Anata?
Anata.
No. I mean, I don't
Did you
know.
have questions about the long range planning?
Changed it.
No.
Okay. So I'm going to hand this over to Valerie so she can talk about where we are with the Park Avenue community project. And I do have a few slides for you, Valerie, so we can leave this up if you'd like. And I'll just advance through as you advise.
Great, thank you. So we have been working as a Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee now for almost a year. So our last meeting is scheduled for next week on November 5th. In this time, we have had something like 15 meetings. We have had numerous grant management team meetings, and we've had 3 workshops. The first one was the only one in February that we were able to have an in-person workshop. And then we had 2 online workshops. We also had 2 major surveys that were done that had quite a bit of community involvement in order to come up with the parts of the project that we were putting together. So there were 3 parts, and the first part, and that's the first slide, Joseph, is the guiding principles. So I want to read all of this to you. And really quickly, I'm going to ask one of the other board members to manage bringing people in, because I can't do that at the same time if people come late. Thank you. So our guiding principles had to do with increasing employment opportunities, with increasing diversity and accessibility in housing. We also wanted to provide safe locations for crossings, connections for walking and biking and transit. We wanted to be able to create a hub for neighborhood activity, to treat natural systems as benefits, and also to promote resilient, sustainable systems and infrastructure. So this was the first piece that we put together, and it was the one piece that we were able to have the in-person workshop in order to gain community involvement with. The second piece, which is the second slide, had to do with putting together a framework plan. So in doing this framework plan, it's to look at where we wanted to have in the commercial zone, which is the only area that we're really talking about around here. It has nothing to do with the residential zones that are already zoned as only residential. This has to do primarily with areas along McLaughlin Boulevard that are within the half mile. And you see that circle on the frame there, but within the half mile of the Park Avenue Transit Station, or the corridor there. So you see some places where we hope to have connections that would go through. These are not drive connections. These are biking and pedestrian connections that would go, for example, from the trolley trail on Silver Springs that would cross McLaughlin and go up to Oakfield roughly. And another one that would be around Torbank that would do the same. And then some other connections midway that would give opportunities for walking and biking connections. We talked about where those, in those red zones, the commercial zones, there would also be some residential, some housing that would be available. We talked about active streets. So when you see the crossings there at Silver Springs and Torbank, where they have the blue around them, those are the conversation around active street design. So on those areas, there would be hopefully development that would face or have some active look towards those streets as people were walking and going by there. And all of the green shrubbery, that's to indicate where we had hoped to have greenway developed. So there, the trolley trail, you see the green, but there's the hope to have more of that along and maintained along Oakfield, and also along the walking paths and the connecting areas. The orange areas are where there would be multifamily residential transitions zone. So that would, which are outside of the C3 zone, which is their commercial area. So that's that was the second major piece. We had 289 people participate in an online survey. We had lots of good input. We did do a public workshop that is also online that you can find through the county system and the Park Avenue project in order to come up with this. So what we were thinking about are where do we want crossings? How will that affect the residents who already live there? And how will it increase opportunities for development in the area at the same time? So all of those things had to be considered. And then the final piece, which is the third slide. This talks about some of the, we talked about zoning and design standards. What are some of the changes that we would have? Now these go into the C3, remember where the red zone is in there, that would allow manufacturing, some allow on-site production of goods and with raw materials for up to 10,000 square feet of what they call the artisan manufacturing model. So these are not huge manufacturing sites. These are small areas where you, you know, hopefully businesses could at least start out. The other thing was to limit new car wash, gas station, new and used car sales, car repair uses, and drive-throughs. So that there's already many places in the area that have auto-oriented uses. Those are grandfathered in. So this adopting this plan does not mean that those people will be run out. They can stay as long as they like. And as I understand it, if they sell to somebody who's taking on the same business, it stays there. However, if you any other property that's developed, those kind of new auto-related activities will not be encouraged in this area, because part of the value coming out of the principles was a walkable, livable space for everyone. It will also prohibit any new self-storage and commercial storage developments, because those two do not create the kind of active walking and pedestrian friendly community areas that we're looking for. And it would prohibit outdoor storage and limit outdoor uses to cafe seating and street vendors and street sidewalk sales, as opposed to using outlet, you know, if you think like if you had a lumber lot and you had a lot of storage outside, that would be prohibited in this area. So the hope is to encourage manufacturing, and maker spaces are also in a part of that, but to limit the kind of activities that are not as people oriented or friendly. So those are the three pieces of project that the Park Avenue Committee has worked on. In our final meeting, we will be doing just a little bit of reflecting adjustment and talking about the kind of things that would need to happen in the next phase. And also doing some preparation for our opportunity to present the plan to the Board of County Commissioners. So we would like to encourage people, if you have comments about this project, anything that you notice that you would like to say, to contact us with, contact the Oak Grove Community Council, because the Oak Grove Community Council will be doing some response, because we're part of MAPIT, and MAPIT is the overall organization here for the planning projects on McLaughlin. But if there's a moment and someone in particular has a question, I feel like I raced through 10 months, pretty rapidly, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them. I can't see everybody, so Joseph, if you can see people, or if you want to maybe stop screen sharing for just a second and we can see people if there's any questions. All
So
good?
you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, or you can wave frantically at the camera, and we'll see you. Fred.
At a previous presentation, they had a slide talking about how the finances and how this might happen. And one possibility was the Metro housing bond for housing. So my question, and this might go to Valerie or might go to Paul. Where is the housing bond process for the county at? I read somewhere that I think the first 3 projects has been selected, and I didn't know how many more might be, how much more money there is, how many more projects they might do with that housing bond.
I don't know anything about the housing bond. I do know that we had a presentation about financing, and we know that just given the economic conditions right now, that there is some money available that would help with affordable housing. And that might be the anchor way to start getting the development going. And with that, Commissioner Savas, can you say anything
Sure.
else?
I'm happy to jump in. Was not prepared for that, a complete detailed answer, but I can tell you that the housing bond money will be rolling in gradually year by year by year. So we have 3 projects committed. The ones closest to us is the Gladstone project, a rehab facility, which was the first one we launched. That's just off of Webster Road and Oatfield. And the other project is the Milwaukee, across from Providence Hospital in Milwaukee, the existing facility, which we're going to maximize the density and develop a whole new project there. So there's a couple hundred, at least, new units that'll be built there. So that's where the emphasis is now. And as those projects get going and rolling, and the new dollars come in, we'll be looking for more projects as time goes on. So the door is still open.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Chips?
Yes, Valerie, maybe. Yeah, I'm not muted. I'm a little confused. I was there in the first few meetings, and I was actually there, I think, at the beginning when the consultants were there. But tonight, I heard you say that this is under the auspices of MAPIT, and MAPIT was never part of any of the beginning of this. When did that happen, and how did that happen?
Joseph, you can explain the connection better than I can.
Yeah, well, the request ultimately started with MAPIT for this project, and so MAPIT has always been a partner in the grant.
No, it never was a
team.
partner in the grant. It was never a partner in the writing of the grant. It was never a partner in the beginning of the grant. MAPIT was never part of it. So somewhere along the way, it got added in. Did you add it in, Joseph?
Well, no, MAPIT was the one that the organization that requested the project through the long range planning process. And then MAPIT was roped into the grant management team from the very beginning after the grant was awarded. And so
Okay,
that's been that way the whole time. So in any event, MAPIT is, putting together, will be over the next month, putting together its comments that, to forward to the BCC about this project. And so, we're inviting comments from the OGCC members so that we can, and Valerie and I are actually both on the committee that will be working to synthesize the draft comments for MAPIT. So please send those to us and we can, send those to contact@oakgroveCPO.org. We'll pull those in and work on our, with our committee work, we'll, make sure that the OGCC's feedback is included in MAPIT's feedback. And then Valerie, I saw your hand come up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just to be really clear, I mean, this is I am a member of MAPIT, and MAPIT has been nothing but supportive in this project. So
okay,
what's really happened is that, when I go to the meetings, Karen Bjorklund is on the grant management team, and I'm on the grant management team along with Ann Muir, who's the vice chair of the citizens community advisory group. And we give reports to MAPIT to make sure that they know what we're doing. And I think there's some hope that the project that happens around Park Avenue will eventually be a model that can be used in different areas going down McLaughlin Boulevard. So they remain very interested, but they've always been very supportive. So I say, well, they're the kind of parent organization, but that's just the way the structure is set up. It has been very, very positive. So.
okay, thank you.
Are we good?
I think so. And so with that, actually our next item of business, I don't have slides for, so I'm just going to hand it over to Commissioner Sadas without sharing my screen. But this is the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Just concluded a meeting right as our meeting was starting. And that's, they're going to talk about the community representation options that were presented to them tonight. So Commissioner Sadas, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. If you could give me some share screening authority, and I'll just share a real short power slide just to kind of help with the visual.
You are all set.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me participate tonight. And I want to talk about, well, I thought I'd first start with a little bit of history. So for the last 3 years, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District has been quite busy due to that Happy Valley situation in which they were seeking to withdraw. So we had a very difficult 3 years. And so the District Advisory Board has been off on in hiatus for a period of time due to the legalities of all this. So the legislature approved and the governor signed the bill last June, July, and allowed Happy Valley out of the district. And so therefore the Board of County Commissioners charged forward with saying, okay, you need to rewrite the bylaws and make the bylaws, accommodate, the membership accommodate the remainder of the district minus Happy Valley. And also focus on representation so that we have better representation, and representation that is actually, well, not to reuse the word, but representative, where the community is engaged or their members that are sitting on the DAB are engaged with the community, and there's feedback back and forth. That's basically, I think, what we were desiring to do. We set about that work. COVID struck obviously in March, and that kind of put a little hiatus on the DAB's work. And so knowing that we had to continue the work, now we've adopted and And this evening, we actually finished the bylaws work. So that's great news. The Board of County Commissioners will see the final draft and approve that. And then Happy Valley, not Happy Valley, but Milwaukee, I think they indicated tonight, it'll be the third week of November. And ideally, hopefully, they will approve that as well. And then we'll have the bylaws structured and we'll be able to do our business and restructuring and recruiting and so on. So the recruitment aspect came up in the bylaw discussion, and geographic representation came up. And as we know, the entire district does not have active CPOs that overlay every inch of the district. Milwaukee, for the most part, I'm going to leave them out of the conversation a little bit because they're not unincorporated and CPOs don't exist in incorporated areas. And so the map before you, that you can all see that map, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I want to make sure the map's up on the screen. So I'm going to digress a little bit and talk about the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee because it's basically about a model in which we're trying to move forward. And I presented this to a number of folks and also last night to the Jenny's Lodge CPO. Seemed to be very well received. So I'm going to kind of give you really the same presentation that I gave them. So the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee was established about 20 years ago. And what we set out to do then was actually try to represent the entire county. So we have rural cities represented, we have urban cities represented, we have water districts. There was a provision for sewer district when Oak Lodge Sanitary was a standalone district. I was the representative during that time for the sanitary district. We have fire districts represented, CPOs, hamlets, villages, and transit agencies. But the key word here is that not all of them were actually at the table. So the fire districts, for example, when it came time for election of the person to the C4 committee, the fire districts would actually caucus and they would stand aside and they would select who they wanted to represent the fire districts at the table at C4, this Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. And same goes for CPOs. Same goes for all those other jurisdictions that I had named. MAPIT, for example, is another model that's quite similar. MAPIT, you have representatives from the CPO of Oak Grove who are selected and represent the CPO as Jenny's Lodges and also MABA, the McLaughlin Area Business Alliance, and they select their folks to sit at the table. And so it's really a kind of a representative model. So what we set out to do, what we found out is that back in 1990, when the district was formed, the idea or the concept of 5 sub areas was actually born then. So credit given to those folks. And then the map here before you is different, a little bit different, but basically the boundaries of the district are pretty much the same. And the idea was back then is that every sub area, and there's 5 here, so Milwaukee being one of them, I'm going to pull them back in the conversation. Every sub area would have their own advisory committee. They had their own staffing from the district, and they also all had some startup money at the time. So that's all behind us. The Milwaukee is the only sub area that continued on with the model of having a advisory board. So they have their own advisory board, and today, at the end of our meeting and during this whole period of time, a member from the advisory board, so to speak, a representative, Ben Johnson, was their representative to the DAB. And Wilda Parks, city councilor, was the city representative to the DAB. However, the rest of the unincorporated area didn't really have that kind of detail or have that representation. So what we agreed through lots of discussions to reinitiate the discussion. And right now there just seems to be a lot of buy-in. There's been no opposition. The DAB unanimously tonight approved the bylaws. That will now be called the DAC. They went from District Advisory Board to District Advisory Committee. So they'll be so we'll call them the DAC from here on out. And so they agreed to this model, and everyone I've talked to the CPO chair of both the Sunnyside CPO and the Southgate CPO. I presented last night to the Jenny's Lodge CPO, and voila, here I am tonight presenting this to you all. What we're proposing and is that we actually, instead of, staff did put up a valid concern that it's probably too onerous on staff to have 4 separate advisory committees for the unincorporated subareas, subareas 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you can see those on the map. So what we decided to do or pursue and got approval from the district administrator, Gary Schmidt, also the county administrator, was basically authorization to put that together, assemble that based on community input and so on. So basically what I have before you is the map. And on this slide here, it's really a draft sub-area committee concept. The proposed purposes, first and foremost, which seems to be on the top of everyone's mind, basically the principle that the sub areas or the unincorporated areas being represented should actually be able to help select who represents them, who they feel will do the job, and who will provide that two-way communication back and forth. So bullet number 1, or their first purpose is to nominate by caucus. If the sub area is there, and let's say there's 20 people, just like anyone could attend these kind of meetings, and there could be voting rights similar to the CPOs. But basically, if there were 20 people there on the night of an election, they could nominate some people from the floor and vote on it, and basically forward 2 names to the board of directors for approval to the advisory committee. And same goes for all the other sub areas. Bullet number 2 there, involve the area residents in NCPRD park planning processes. Even tonight, I learned that one of the areas in the Sunnyside CPO had a park in mind, and they had brought that to staff, and they wanted to pursue having that park developed. It's owned by the Parks District, but they wanted to have it developed. It's basically an open piece of land. I didn't even know about that outreach until this evening. Had we had a more engaged community, I think we all would have known that. And we have parks certainly in Oak Grove, or land in Oak Grove, that are unimproved, that need to be improved. Moving on to bullet number 3, just enhanced coordination and cooperation. Again, these are just ideas. The language can be changed or adjusted, but these are just things I kind of pulled out of the C4 bylaws and put in there for role and purpose. Provide a forum for district park issues of mutual benefit and concern. I don't have to read all of this. Unified positions, line of communications, all those kinds of things that one would expect from a robust public engagement process. The other little slide I have is really, for now, we'll call it the Joint Park Sub-Area Committee, Citizen Committee. We can name this whatever we choose to name it. But basically, it would be one committee with representation from all the sub areas, and where the sub areas would do their individual work is when they wanted a caucus for election, or they wanted to maybe direct something unique to their representatives. But we would meet under one room, just like MAPIC meets, just like C4 meets. Everyone's welcome to attend their public meetings, and we can all work on parks. This is kind of exciting, frankly, because number 1, there's huge opportunity for public engagement. There's aspects about trails and natural places and watersheds and a lot of things that integrate even into the Park Avenue planning process. You raise some issues about open spaces and all those kinds of things. So this overlays into a number of activities that we're all interested in doing. It will serve as a sounding board. There's opportunities for, if we know of people, and the more people at the table, the more the network grows. Maybe there's people that want to donate land, or maybe there's a group that wants to start a Friends of the Parks area, so we can put monies together. For those of you that are familiar with the Gladstone Nature Park, that is a city-owned property in Gladstone, but the Gladstone Nature Park volunteers, they actually do maintenance and maintain that park. They love it. They do fundraisers. They do a number of activities. We could emulate that. So I just see a lot of opportunity, and apparently a lot of people have grabbed onto this and agree with that. And so that's where we are today. I have been asked and proposed to whether we do a town hall, but people really asked to move on this, so to speak, expedited, if you will, and kind of get this thing forwarded. But I'd like to hear what you all think, and if you agree or disagree or have anything you want to add to that. Like I said, this is kind of like a fresh piece of paper. These are just ideas. And I'd like to hear any comments and how you want to all move forward. So with that, I will stop screen sharing and ask if any questions.
Commissioner Savas, I had a request, if you could show the map, but do it full screen.
Okay,
And
I'll do the
I
best
can't do that. So if you could
Yeah.
show that really quickly, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do the best I can. I am not totally a PowerPoint expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I will try. Does that work? Can you all see that?
No.
Okay,
No, you'll need to share the screen again.
right. Okay. Now I will have to go. How do I get back out of here? Oh, I messed up.
That's okay, Paul. That was my request.
That's all right.
You just, yeah, I think you did it. Well, you just click in the
you
lower
go.
right-hand corner. There's a thing that looks like a slide screen with a stand.
How's that?
That's it.
There you go.
Okay.
So I saw Fred waving his hand. Gene, did you have a question about the map, or did you just want to look at it more closely?
I just wanted to look at it more closely.
Okay.
You'll have this. I can forward the PowerPoint to Joseph, and you'll have access to it. If you all want to download the map at this very minute, you can actually go to the NCPRD website as well. This map is posted on the website. But Joseph, I'll make sure I forward you the PowerPoint with these three slides, so you folks can have it as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other?
Fred, did you have a question?
I can't see hands, but I'll just take any questions if there are any.
Yes, this is Fred. I want to know what's the logic of the boundaries, especially between Oak Grove and Jennings Lodge. How the logic of where the boundaries were chosen.
That's a great question, and I forgot to address that. So thank you, Fred. I appreciate that. So the District Advisory Board was really adamant that we had balanced representation. So what we did, if you look at those, you'll see a number there. You'll see 20,800 for Jennings Lodge. You'll see 20,760. So we had our GIS staff try to assemble a population that all five areas, as best as possible, could have as close to a balanced 20,000, 21,000 population. So the only way they could do that accurately with data is to use the precincts, and that's how they did that. They use what was it? Not the precincts, but the census tracts. So they use so that's how this was assembled, Fred. And by the way, the original map we worked with, or the first map we worked with, had Oak Grove and Jennings Lodge into the same area. And we felt that because those two areas are distinctly different and they had two active CPOs, that it'd be a shame to have them combined and have other areas where there was no CPO as active. So we split that out, and again, we got unanimous support for this particular layout versus the other layout. But if that answers your question, Fred?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see hands. So anyone else want to chime in? I'm happy to stop screen sharing if you like.
I have a question, Paul. Jim Meyer. I was wondering, you have five separate, so is this to mean that there's only going to be 10 people on the committee?
Okay, so the membership on the District Advisory Committee is 11 members. So each of these sub areas will have 2 people. So Milwaukee will have 2 people, Area 2, which is Oak Grove and east, that blue area, that will have also 2. And then and how you got to 11 is the Milwaukee Center has 1 vote. So you have 5 times 2 plus 1 makes 11.
Okay, I just wanted to see how that each area is being represented equally. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we have again, interest and some CPO overlay into all of these areas. We don't, again, they don't cover every square inch of the district, but we need to rely more on the sub area than we do the CPOs, but the CPOs are certainly a big part of the membership.
Thank you.
You bet.
Are the Commissioner Savas, are the boundaries going to be dynamic as, for instance, as Happy Valley aggressively annexes more land like they've been doing and pulls more area out of the Parks District? How do these boundaries respond to that?
Okay, well,
situation?
great question, Joseph. Thank you for the question. So first of all, in the settlement agreement with the city of Happy Valley, we were concerned about the district getting smaller because that means less revenue. So in the agreement, it was agreed upon that if Happy Valley annexed into the district aspect and the revenues would remain in the district, as will be the district itself. So I don't want to make that confusing, but essentially is that what you just said. Will the district get smaller? Technically, no. As far as that Happy Valley portion will remain relatively as whole as possible, unless there's some kind of a battle about that. But right now, the way the settlement agreement was structured, the revenues will continue to come in. If they want to annex it and annex that into the city district, they'll do so without the revenue. So the district will continue to get the revenue. There was another piece of the I wanted to respond to as well. You mentioned, will the district get smaller? What was, I think, Jen, one more point there, Joseph?
It was really just as the as unincorporated land gets annexed, how do the boundaries get redrawn? And it sounds like no, because right now the agreement with the only aggressively annexing party is so, we'll keep the district intact in terms of revenue. So
right. Yeah, there was the other point. The other point, I just remember what it was, and that was that we agreed upon tonight in the bylaws that every 4 years we'll re-examine the population. Let's just say that Park Avenue takes off in McLaughlin as we get another 3,000 residents added to the Oak Grove area. We're going to need to do some adjustments because there is a 4-year review that will be built in. So the boundaries will be adjusted again by census tracts again, and we'll make minor adjustments.
great, thank you.
Right.
Any other questions for Commissioner Savas about this?
I do have one either request or put it out there, and this struck me this morning after a conversation I had with a constituent that heard the presentation last night, and that is, and their interest was expediting this. So perhaps tonight, if there is interest and the CPO was willing to submit a letter to the Board of Commissioners on behalf of the NCPRB Board of Directors, but if you guys like this idea and you want us to act on it, I think we'll need to demonstrate that there's support as much as possible. And you are a huge part of the district. And I'd certainly like to see your support on this. Without your support, we may not get any traction or movement on that. So if there was a letter that you all agreed upon to forward this, that would be fantastic.
Could I quickly just ask what the timing is on that?
I would say that, I'd probably say in the next probably couple of weeks would be ideal. If I do a town hall, that might be another opportunity for people to chime in on. So there's no urgency per se, but it would be advantageous to prompt the staff and the county commissioners to direct staff to get some language underway to assemble this.
Okay. So I see Gene's hand and then Chip's hand. So Gene first.
Okay, so there's 5 areas and then 10 people. So why not 10 areas and 10 people?
Well, I guess we the original model back in 1990 was 5 sub areas, and I thought initially when we set out to pursue this whole thing about reconstituting the sub areas, I wasn't sure we'd get where we got, but the fact that we did. So no one ever raised that issue at the time. Gene? It might be harder to manage, I imagine. We're just hoping that we can actually reignite interest across the district. And this is a great opportunity, frankly, to increase the membership of the CPOs, and yours included, and try to get youth involved and everything else. One thing I'll say is that when I first got on as a county commissioner and I was the liaison, they used to meet at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And back in my day as an Oak Lodge Sanitary District member, when they met at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there was no one in the room. And there was no one in the room because people were working. And if you wanted people to be there, I always said you need to change the meeting time, which we eventually did. But we've moved the meeting time from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. But if this advisory committee, sub-area advisory committee concept moves forward, the advisory committee could set their own time and ideally try to get some diversity, try to get some youth, try to get, meet at any frequency that they all want to meet at. Currently, we're kind of bound by staffing and everything else. So the DAB or the District Advisory Committee and the district are not as flexible. And if you look at what we did with libraries, for those of you who were part of the Oakland group who met in the firehouse for every Friday for weeks on end, thank you. But look at where we got. Look what this community did to get us to where we are today, with the fact that today we're moving forward with a library. We did that because we demonstrated, or you all demonstrated, that there was support, there was momentum, and you were all part of leaders in that, and we're moving forward with that. So that's a huge win for us. So this is a model that kind of puts us on a same track.
Chips, you've got your hand up next. You'll need to unmute.
Yeah, and Paul, thank you. I know because a lot has happened and that was great. And I'm glad you mentioned the library. There was really a lot of significant support, particularly from our community, to really get that library thing going. And it was a lot of effort. A lot of people were involved. And that's true. One of the things that I didn't understand, and maybe you could explain, because I've never seen that map before that you were showing, because I've never seen the community sort of divided up like that. And it's nice that it's even, but it's like, it seems kind of strange because it seems like I don't understand exactly why the importance of dividing up. It seems like this is a time when we need to, I don't know, work together more instead of dividing up into smaller sort of subunits. It's hard to get a lot of us involved. And down at that place, maybe there will be people involved enough at every place to do things, but I'm not sure how dividing it up really works that way. I just never saw the map before.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chips. It took a lot of effort. I think that we kind of hit a roadblock with the city of Milwaukee because they were adamant, and I'll just be a little bit frank here. I say this with respect to my colleagues in Milwaukee. I mean, no disrespect, but they were adamant that we had geographic representation because they were concerned that Oak Grove would basically, their membership would dominate the DAB. That was expressed in a meeting, a public meeting. So, so that's why it got divvied up. I had to do some deep digging and go through some archives to find the whole history of the district dating back to 1990. And I tripped upon this. If you're interested, I can show you the original map. It doesn't look very pretty. It was not divided up by population numbers. Perhaps it was at the time, but there was no indication that it was. And it's not that dissimilar. I mean, the shapes are a little bit different, but it was 5 areas. And so we thought what better to do to at least keep build on where we were, and there was buy-in, and we got where we got. And I take it as a win. It's not perfect.
Why would we be using information in a map that was from whatever, 1990 or 1989? And the community is so much different now. I mean, I'm not, that's why I'm a little confused why that is so significant today at this time, when
Yeah, well,
it's 20 years later and
yeah.
the community has changed and is continuing to change. So I don't understand why we're kind of using those metrics for us now.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'll repeat it again. And I think this is really where the answer really lies. Milwaukee was adamant that there was geographic representation. They were adamant that it be balanced proportionally by population because they anticipated that we would be having members placed by population numbers. So this is what we came up with. I will repeat though, that the map will be revisited if there's a recommendation to change the boundaries and work with the census tracts and shape it differently. We have that opportunity in the future. So be engaged. This is not permanent, but it's a start. It's a huge start.
You're exactly why we're starting with this. I mean, is this? But anyway, thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh, just interested.
Fred, I saw your hand, and then Grover.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. I'd like to move that the Oak Grove Community Council support the proposal as Paul presented it. So that's my motion. Then I'd like make a comment in related to that. I think it's a very good way to split. I liked the general boundaries. I've been one of the map representatives. In fact, I'm the longest serving representative from Oak Grove on Map-It. And during my time, the Clackamas Community County, Clackamas CPO kind of went dormant. And in the process, Map-It changed to reflect that. So the real power behind Map-It is Oak Grove Community Council, Jennings Lodge, and MABA. And we try to take care of the issues that the Clackamas CPO might have. So, and since, so this provides for us if the same model works, because where we have Jennings Lodge have very active CPOs, and if you've taken the time, which I had once, to listen to a lot of this stuff comes out of the Jennings Lodge CPO by Grover, and Grover happens to be here tonight. He's been one of the persons that went back to 1990 and figured it out. Well, their question was, how come we lost out? How come when the Evangelical Center came open and there was no money to buy some of that land for the parks? So we dug deep and went to the history and said, we don't have proper representation. So anyway, those are my comments. So I made a motion, see if there's any second. Thank you.
So the motion is to submit a letter of support for the concept presented by Commissioner Staffas.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Greg. Okay, any further discussion on the motion to support Commissioner Savis's concept?
You did have a hand up from Grover, I think.
Oh yeah, let's let Grover talk now that we have a second and we're in discussion. Grover, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I'll try to fit it into your motion as well. First thing I want to say is I really want to thank the both Oak Grove and Jennings Lodge community. 220 people signed our petition that we wanted to have local representation, and that's been helpful being able to reference that. We had over 20 people on the meeting tonight who were there in support of that. And the most important part I want to get to, Fred alluded to it, this is really one district. And unfortunately, it hasn't been looked at from how is it equitable across the entire district. It started out that way, and then it took a side trip around the Happy Valley inclusion part and so on and so forth. And as Fred just said, you know, we might have had a Jennings Lodge park had it not been that the money was sent to Happy Valley instead. And also, you know, the county commissioner at the time could say, well, we don't have any money. Well, it's because Happy Valley had it all. And so this is going to do away with all those zones, and it's going to have us be one district, and it'll have representation with eyes from the entire district to look at it equitably. And those boundaries, they're not fixed. That's a place to start. Let's get the team up and running so we have representation. And then from that, over time, we can adjust as needed. And I even like the idea that both Gene and Chips brought up. It's like, it doesn't have to stay in these numbers. But if we right now have a group of the entire unincorporated meeting and then caucus by those sub areas, we're building up some representation so we can actually have some support going into it. And so that's what I want to say. And thank you all for letting me speak.
Thank you for your comments, Grover. So, Jan, could you confirm for the record that we have more than 25 voting members in attendance?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. So we don't need to do a roll call. Instead, I will ask first if there are any no votes on the motion. And I guess the best way to do that is either the raise hand feature in Zoom or wave at the camera. I don't see any no votes. I don't see any hands raised. I see Mark Knudsen waving.
Yeah. So I'm seldom a no voter kind of guy, and I think it's a really intriguing idea. And I'm just reluctant because we've got pretty limited information at this point. And I think Commissioner Savis has done his usual exceptional job in terms of laying it out, but it's probably the engineer in me. And I would just love to sort of see a written explanation in terms of what this really looks like and how this will really work, and more than 5 minutes to sort of ruminate on it and kind of study the map. But you know, it just seems to me some better clarity and description of this would leave me feeling better about casting a yes vote at this point.
You know, Mark does raise a great point, and that's why I kind of alluded to that. This is a draft. This is a concept. I need everyone's input to make sure it's shaped the way everyone believes in. And so there's going to be opportunity, and I'm willing to do a town hall. The support letter is just helping to move the concept, and the details will be hopefully based on the input from you all. So there will be steps forward, but in order to direct staff at the county level or the Parks District level, I was told that demonstrate their support to do this, and we'll proceed. So I will at least make my promise to you all that we'll help shape this. When I say we being everyone who's mentioned or anyone who attends the town hall, the CPOs will be notified. And there's 4 CPOs that are active right now, and the other 2, Southgate and Sunnyside, will participate in this. They're excited by this.
So a quick question for Commissioner Savis. When do you think the the county board of commissioners would sort of consider this? I mean, what's sort of the time frame to really begin to lock this down? You said you'd like a letter from us within a couple of weeks, but can you give us a sense of what the big schedule looks like?
Yeah, well, I didn't know, I didn't know until tonight that number one, we would finish the bylaw discussion, which we did. So that's new information. I did ask the administrator during the meeting at the DAB tonight, what the timeline would be for approval of the bylaws. That'll be, as I mentioned earlier, the second and third week of November by both the county and the city of Milwaukee, ideally. So if we want to initiate something, I think the sooner we act, the better. If we go too slow, then what's going to happen is the default language in the bylaws currently states that if there is no sub area formed, then a mixture of county staff, a couple CPO members, and I forgot exactly what the language is. They'll do the selection process versus the community. And that'll be based on, I can find that here and read that to you. So yeah, the default language reads as this. The recruitment committee will be composed of 2 members of Clackamas County staff, 2 members of the district advisory committee, and 2 members of the community planning organization or other community groups. And then ultimately approved by the board of directors, commissioners, if there is no sub area active. So actually it's in our best interest to act quicker and get the ball rolling. So to Joseph's earlier question, when would you like this? Well, I'd probably say the sooner the better, but you know, is there urgency? There's only urgency if we want engagement, we want to get ahead of the selection process. And I think there's an opportunity to do that. I think we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, so we're still in the, oh, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, and one last question, then I'll shut up. Are those bylaws, have they been now published? Are they online someplace where they could be reviewed?
So these are the DAB bylaws. So the bylaws and structure for this sub area committee are not part of the bylaws that we finished tonight. So I want to
Yeah, no, I was talking about the ones that finished tonight.
Yeah, the one we finished tonight, I know that we approved it with amendments. So I'm imagining the next day or two,
Yeah.
legal counsel will have that finished. And so I'll make sure they're posted. You all have them.
Okay.
So as a matter of order, I'm going to say that this has been the discussion after the second on the motion, and we haven't actually taken a vote yet. And so with that in mind, is there any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Valerie, did you have something to say?
I'm wondering if it would be possible to postpone the vote until next meeting in order to gather enough more information, or if that would be helpful. I don't know if that's a possibility to do or not.
I would like to do that. I second that.
So Commissioner Savas, could you briefly respond to how, if that would create challenges, or if that would be acceptable for us to have a little extra time to review this and then come back next month for a vote?
Yeah. Well, you don't have much to chew on at this moment other than a concept. And the concept is simply, what you're really voting on is that you approve a concept basically where the unincorporated area gets to select their representatives to the DAB. That's really the concept you're voting on. If you don't want to do that and you want the default language to step in, then waiting a month, for example, will probably we won't have that opportunity for another 2 to 4 years, because that'll be the staggered terms of the elected or the appointed members of the committee. So your opportunity to at least send a letter saying you like the concept is before you today. It can be tomorrow or a week or two. The longer we delay, the more likely that we won't be able to, we being the community, won't be able to select our members. But I can, if we act quickly, institute a process in which the CPOs yourselves can all be involved in creating the structure and the bylaws and everything else. So this is not the end, this is the beginning.
Valerie, since that was the response to your question.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask another question in there. Sounds like there's two parts that I hear happening. The concept of representation is good. There's concerns about the boundary lines. Can we write a letter in support of the concept? Because absolutely we, want representation, but give us a little, but we have concerns or we have questions about the boundary lines, which doesn't mean we reject them, but it means that we want to look at them closely before we, commit to that. Is that a possibility?
Well, yeah, but yes, but they are two different things. So because the bylaws were approved and the map was approved already, that's moving forward. Whether you support this or not, that's moving forward. I don't see any way, absent a complete revolt, that will not move forward with the map. And the bylaws, because that's done by a separate group appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. Their work is relatively complete at this point. And so if you want to send a separate letter or include in the same letter that in the future you'd like to see some map changes or opportunity to change the map at the next opportunity, that wouldn't hurt to include that in that whole effort. But this is just really supporting of the concept of having input on who you select to represent you on the district advisory committee.
Okay, I mean, that seems like the boundaries are set, but maybe there's an opportunity in the future to do that. So, okay, thank you.
I saw Eleanor's hand and then Mark.
I just also want to recognize the countless hours that have been put into this by many people, many residents of our area, many volunteers, staff of the county, everything else, who have really been massaging and looking at this stuff, who really have been making sure it's like, we're not represented, how can we get represented? And people who I really trust to work on the betterment of our community have been involved in this. And I believe that they have come to something that if they're happy with it, then I believe I'm willing to follow them. And I'm willing to vote for this thing because I really believe that the amount of love and care and attention that's been put into this. So as Paula said, the cats are out of the barn as far as what the map is going to look like. At this point, it's supported so that we can get represented in a way that people have really championed for this community. So I, for one, am ready to vote yay myself.
Thank you, Eleanor. I saw Mark and then Jean.
So since I kind of, raised this issue during discussion, I truly appreciate the clarification and explanation, and particularly that what we would be doing is supporting a concept. And I guess my only question would be if it's okay with Fred is making the motion, and I think it was Greg that made the second, to be clear that what we're supporting is in fact that concept and what was presented tonight as a concept, as opposed to a, final done deal. So basically just sort of reflecting what Commissioner Savas had given us. If that's all we're approving, I'm completely on board.
Jean.
Yeah, there we go, finally. So basically, we're approving a yet to be written letter of support. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we don't have the text of the letter yet, or nuances thereon, but basically we're supporting the idea that we're going to be represented. We'd like to be represented by the 5 areas within the map, and as opposed to carrying on with the basically no representation right now.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. The motion is giving us, or me as chair, direction to write a letter of support for the concept of CPO representation to the district advisory committee.
Well, it actually, let me clarify, because the CPOs do not cover every inch of the district, what it is really you would be supporting the concept of the sub areas, selecting their members to the district advisory committee. So
Okay.
and the CPO is a big chunk of area 2, but it's
But
not
technically distinct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Joseph, I can help you just make sure that it's done correctly, and we've captured all the nuances of everyone's concern here. It's only a concept, and the faster we get, somewhat some momentum going here, we're all going to have an opportunity. Every one of you who wants to be engaged will be engaged if you choose to do so.
Okay, thank you. Jean, your hand's still raised. Did you have anything else? Nope. Okay. Any other, let's see. So I didn't hear any disagreement from Fred or Greg about the nature of the letter, that we're supporting this in concept, that there's public participation in the selection of the district advisory committee. So the motion on the floor is a letter of support for the concept. Motion by Fred, second by Greg. Everybody who wishes to vote no, please raise your hand or use the raise hand feature in Zoom to indicate that you are a no vote. Okay, anybody who wishes to, and this is voting members only, please. Anybody who wishes to abstain, please raise your hand or use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
And with that,
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you all. And Joseph, I will send you those, the PPT. And so the language at the very top, the draft concept, if you want to just use that language, it's basically very similar to what you just stated. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate, just getting the information, fresh information on this important issue. We are now overdue, so we're going to, but it was worth it to have this discussion, I think. So let's move on and try to wrap this up in the next few minutes. The one thing I wanted to mention with LUART is that there's actually hearings coming up on short-term rentals regulations, and we've been tracking this issue for a while. And so what we'll do is we'll put information about this in our follow-up newsletter, but there's actually a BCC hearing, hearings on the 5th and 19th of November to discuss the regulation program, and then there may be ZDO amendments coming after that if that is approved. The next up is Jan. Is there any updates from the Concord Library Planning Task Force?
The only update is that there is still that special seismic meeting that is happening. That's tomorrow, I believe. Sorry, I didn't have it in front of me because I was focusing on the attendance. If anyone does not have that information and they want to participate, you can go to the county website and look up the Concord Task Force. Just search for Concord Task Force, and it will give you the link to the meeting. But yes, there's just a special seismic meeting, and then after that we will have another meeting, but I don't have the date for that yet, where they will present a more enhanced version of option 2, which is what the task force and the community agreed on. And so we're excited about seeing that, but we haven't seen that yet. And the seismic report is just to make sure that the Oatfield fault is not going to cause any issues that they can't mitigate against in the construction.
Excellent. So we'll make sure to put that upcoming meeting date in our follow-up email
Yes.
that we send out. The other update we wanted to share just really quick is that we have a new park open at Boardman Wetlands. And so that was the notice for that officially opening went out recently. And so we'll include more details in our follow-up newsletter, but we wanted to make sure we shared that with you.
Could we
We've
just have
got,
a moment of incredible appreciation for that, of how many years that's been in the making and how incredibly thrilling it is that it has happened. And William Wild is smiling hugely wherever he is. Just a moment of that. Thank you.
That was really awesome. I don't mean to scurry past it in my effort to try to save time, but yeah, this is really a neat result, and so you know, we're definitely happy to see this. Before we wrap up, there are ABC recruitments active. There looks like there's about a half dozen. Some of those are due this week. Compensation Board for Elected Officials is due tomorrow. So we have the link for this. It actually is web3.clackamas.us/ABC. I don't know why, but that's actually the link that you have to use to make it work. So we'll send that out in our follow-up newsletter so that you guys can take a look at those. Are there any announcements from the floor? Let me stop sharing really quick to take a look at.
I have two.
Eleanor, please.
I have two. One, I want to let everybody know about a program called Winter Blitz. It's part of the North Clackamas School District. This is families who are in the school district who sign up to receive gifts during the holidays, who don't have enough to make ends meet. Just assuming that this year might be tougher than most. Pastor Heather Riggs at United Methodist Community Church down here in right down in downtown Oak Grove has said that they are now one of the places that are distributing the boxes. Before it used to be done at the schools. Now it's not being done at the schools. So I've asked Joseph, we've got two websites. People, they're looking for gifts, food, clothing, housewares, money. The church is trying to make it easy. You can adopt a family for $200. There is there's going to be a giving portal on the church website, and the distribution day is December 5th. So they're looking for contributions by mid-November or by November 30th at the latest, so they can get things organized and packed up and stuff like that. So again, this is called Winter Blitz. It's through the school board, school district. It's been done before, and it's for families in need in the area. So just wanted everybody to know about that. And we'll be making that announcement again at the December meeting, because it'll be like close to the deadline, but close enough that if you want to get a final gift in. So that's fun. And again, Joseph, you're going to post those website addresses on the OGCC website. The second thing is, I want everyone to know, we've spoken about it in the past about getting that we have applied for a grant from Metro, and we have received word that we have been awarded that grant from Metro. So for those who aren't familiar with it, or people who need a little bit of a reminder, a group of us applied to Metro for $100,000 to fund a research study that'll be based on economics and governance options for this area. And so we're looking at, right now, we're looking for your help in providing us with information that we would like the consultants to include in these research studies. We expect the study to be done by next summer, and we're looking sort of to the end of November right now for questions, comments, concerns, issues, because we want to make sure that things get covered. So again, Joseph is going to have an email address. We have a Gmail account. It's oaklodgegovernance@gmail.com. And then there's also a form that's going out that that you can ask questions on or things like that. So anything else? Any other questions around that? Yeah, Jan? No, you're muted, love.
Sorry. I know Mark Newton from Oak Lodge Water is on the Zoom call here. I was just curious, are you doing outreach or partnerships with Oak Lodge Water and everybody else that will be touched by this?
Everything. Yeah,
okay.
Everything, because this, so there's no community outreach component in the grant itself. It's just strictly for the research studies. So the community outreach is completely on the community. And we've been like letting people know that we applied for this, but we hadn't known if we got the award. Now we know we got the award. So I spoke at the Jenny's Lodge meeting last night. Tonight's meeting, we sent emails out. There's a piece in the Clackamas Review. We want everybody's input, as many people as possible, so that we can get input right now for the consultant, but also in the future. This is like, how do we figure this out? Different places might want different things. How do we learn from previous efforts and really help this area come into itself? There's so much going on. There's so much that's changed. So yes, we're interested in everybody who lives in this, and we're figuring out those areas right now. So any other questions?
Quick question. So the best way to submit those comments, just respond to this email, or
Yeah, respond on the email.
how can we connect?
Yes, exactly. So it's, again, it's one big word, oaklodgegovernance@gmail.com. And then Joseph is also going to put, there's a hyperlink, but if you go, the Clackamas Review is going to have an article that's going to have the email address in it and the hyperlink. Hyperlink is beyond my comprehension. I've just been told what that phrase means, and it sounds like a really good thing. So don't ask me how to get there. That I don't know. But I know oaklodgegovernance.com. Anyone else that I can see? Okay, thanks, Joseph. Those are my 2 things.
Thanks, Eleanor. Any other announcements from the floor? Jan.
Just a reminder that if you don't have Halloween plans and you have little ones that you're running around with, NCPRD is doing the Boo Bash. And I think it's tomorrow. Is that right, Eleanor?
It is. It's Friday. It's Friday.
It's not on Halloween. It's the day before.
Right. It's Friday night. And that reminds me of another one that I want to talk about. So NCPRD is going to be at the Aquatic Center, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And what are the
I
times?
think it's 4:30 to 6:30.
Okay. And then the United Methodist Church is doing one on Halloween itself. It's a drive-by. It's honk and treat. So you get dressed up, you stay in your car, and little candy bags will be passed to you at the end of a broom, like on a witch's broom, like here's a little bag of candy. And you can get, you can light candles and have a picture taken. And that's from 5 to 7 on Saturday, on Halloween itself. So there's two things going on in the community for the kids. And,
Cool.
you know, the parents and grandparents. So, yeah.
Anything else, Jan? Nope.
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Okay, great. Any other announcements from the floor?
That's
Okay, well, seeing none, I'm just really briefly going to pull this right back up and show that our next meeting coming up, really the next one for us is December 2nd, and that'll be the last one of the year. And then we'll meet again on January 27th and then February 24th when we'll have our officer election. And then this coming Monday will be the OGCC board meeting, and then we probably won't meet again until January 4th and that January meeting. So that's what's coming up. And that's all we have. So thank you very much. Valerie, please feel free to stop recording. And thanks, everybody. Have a good night.